After a while, the old man broke the silence. "I am so, so sorry," he spluttered through tears. "Thanks," sniffed Eric. "The whole house was blown up in the night. Poor old dear. I know we didn't always see eye to eye, but she did her best to look after you. I know, she tried. She loved you, even though she didn't know how to show it. I know. She didn't deserve for her life to end like this." "No one does," agreed the boy. "Deaf as a post she was. She didn't stand a chance." "It's all my fault," exclaimed Eric. "I should have been there." "You mustn't say that. The blasted war isn't your fault." "I should have woken her up when the air raid warning sounded." "If you'd been there, chances are you'd be dead too." The boy gulped. The old man was right. "With Granny gone, I've got no one now," he blubbered. "You've got me!" exclaimed the old man. "You'll always have me." The pair hugged each other even tighter. "Thank you, Uncle Sid." "There's that sound again!" exclaimed Eric. Come in, and let's shut the door." They did so, and as soon as they were inside and away from prying eyes and ears, Sid said, "Look, you need to promise not to tell anybody." "Promise not to tell anybody what?" "Well, you need to promise first. I can't tell before you've promised." "I promise," said Eric. "Come in," whispered Sid, and as he led the boy down the narrow hall, "so you can meet my secret family." "Secret family!" spluttered Eric. What on earth was the old man talking about? "Shh!" shushed Sid as he opened the narrow door to his kitchen. Inside that little room was a kingdom of creatures. Eric's eyes widened with delight as he saw a one-winged parrot perched on a kettle, a baby elephant with an incredibly short trunk, a blind seal swimming up and down in a tin bath, a giant tortoise with a wicker basket for a shell crawling across the floor, a one-legged flamingo toppling over in the corner, and a crocodile with no teeth scuttling under a table. And at last, but not least, a one-armed baboon with the most enormous bright red bottom you've ever seen climbing up the shelves. Eric's mouth fell open. He was speechless. "This is why I can't have anyone over for tea," announced Sid. "Have they all got names?" asked the boy eagerly. "Yes, of course they've all got names, Eric. Please allow me the pleasure of introducing them to you." The boy beamed with anticipation. "This is Parker the parrot. You can shake her wing. Be gentle, though. She's only got one." Eric reached out and took Parker's one wing in his hand. "How do you do?" he said. "How do you do?" squawked the parrot. "How do you do?" "She speaks!" exclaimed the boy. "Yes, lots of parrots do." "Parrots do, parrots do," came a squawk. "She talks all right," began Sid. "She likes to repeat whatever you just said, so it's not always the most exciting conversation." "I love her," said Eric. "Me too. She's the first one I got, so she'll always be special." "This is Ernie," he continued, shaking the baby elephant by his unusually short trunk. "Isn't Ernie going to grow?" "That he is. I fear he's going to eat me out of house and home one day. Here, grab that apple," said Sid, pointing over to a shelf. The boy took it, nearly tripping over the crocodile as he did so. "Ernie's trunk is too short for him to feed himself, so you'll have to do it by hand. You can feed him if you like." Eric lifted up the apple to the baby elephant and placed it in his mouth. "He'll be your best friend forever now," chirped Sid. The boy patted the elephant on his side before giving a hug. "I hope so. I love him." "Don't make the others jealous," said Sid. "Come on, you've got plenty more friends to meet." One by one, Sid introduced Eric to all the animals in the room. "Sassy the seal." Splish splash went the seal in the tin bath. "She's as blind as a bat. Well, blinder really, as bats have that sonar thingamajig, so we need to take very good care of her." "I will," said Eric, running his fingertips gently along the seal's soft fur. Although the animal couldn't see the boy, she could feel him. A smile crept across her face. Just then the tortoise loomed into view, carrying the wicker basket on its back. "What happened to his shell?" asked Eric. "It got smashed to pieces when poor Totter here was transported all the way from Galapagos on a boat. He's now got my laundry basket for a shell." Eric noticed how the basket was tied underneath the tortoise with string, patted the creature on its head and said, "Poor thing. Totter's a fighter. He'll keep tottering along until way after we've gone. Some tortoises live well past 100. The flamingo toppled over again. Why does the flamingo keep falling over? Asked Eric. I thought flamingos could stand on one leg. They can, replied Sid, righting her. But they do use their other leg for balance. So if you're born with just one leg, like Florence here, you can't help toppling over. Oh, there she goes again, he continued. Eric reached out and stroked her side as she lay on the floor. Her feathers are so soft, he remarked. Yes, perfect for dusting. You what? I use her leg as a pole, then I pick her up and dust the top of the cupboards. Sid couldn't help but smirk. You are joking. Ha, of course I'm joking. I wouldn't do a thing to hurt poor Florence, said Sid, leaning her up against the wall. Maybe she needs some crutches to help her get around. That's a good idea, Eric, or some tin ones like me. I've tried a few things for Florence. A false leg made out of an umbrella, a bicycle wheel on a harness, all sorts, but nothing's worked for her yet. Same is true for Colin. Eric's attention turned to the toothless crocodile. He needs some false teeth, he said. At least he can't eat you. No, he's a teddy bear really, aren't you, Colin? With that, the crocodile turned over on his back. As he did so, his tail thrashed and knocked over Florence once again. Colin loves tummy tickles, said Sid. Have a try. The boy did as he was told. To his delight, the crocodile actually seemed to laugh by snapping his jaws together over and over. What did I tell you? Asked Sid. Now, last but certainly not least, not in the bottom department, is Botty. Botty the baboon. Botty must have the biggest bottom I've ever seen, remarked the boy, as he studied the enormous rounded red thing at the top of the baboon's legs. All right, said Sid. Don't go on about it. Botty is very sensitive about her body. It's not easy having just the one arm. The baboon heaved herself up onto the man's shoulder as he fed her a crust of bread. As she did so, Botty's bottom poked right into Eric's face. Now, I don't know if you've ever had a baboon's bottom in your face, but trust me, baboons' bottoms come very high on the stinkometer. Eric grabbed the wooden clothes peg from the table and put it on his nose. That's better, he hummed in that strange voice you have when your nose is pinched. That's funny, chuckled Sid, grabbing another peg and placing it on his nose. Now I'm sounding silly too. Botty the baboon must have been intrigued too, because she grabbed a peg and put it on her nose. She honked in a high-pitched honk, clearly delighting herself. All three laughed. So, began the boy, where did they all come from? Oh, I borrowed them all from the zoo. Borrowed? Well, stole, really. Why? All these animals have things wrong with them. For me, that is what makes them special. But no one thought they could survive, so they were going to be put out of their misery. Eric's face turned pale. You don't mean... I do mean. Miss Nile would have been called in to give them a lethal injection. Just like she's planning to do with Gertrude. We have to stop her, Uncle Sid. The old man looked at the clock on the wall. It's already 11 o'clock. The zoo closes at 5. We don't have much time. Just then there was a sound at the window. Oh no, hissed Eric, ducking his head. It must be the police. The police are after you, whispered Sid. Yes, replied Eric. They wanted to evacuate me after Granny died and send me off to live with strangers. So I did a runner. I have to hide, said the boy, scuttling across the room and opening a cupboard door. Don't tell 'em I'm here, he said, as he found a place between the old pots and pans and shook himself in. Oh, for goodness sake, huffed Sid, making his way across the room to the door. I know what 3 taps on the back window means, and it isn't the police, it's... Just your Bessie, exclaimed a lady. Eric spied through the crack in the cupboard door as a very jolly lady in a doctor's coat hurried into the room. She gave Sid the biggest bear hug, sweeping the poor man off his feet. All the animals swirled round her, hooting with delight. Just your Bessie, repeated Parker the parrot. Put me down, Bessie, protested Sid with a shy smile that betrayed his true feelings for her. Me tin legs might drop off. Sounds like a perfect idea to me, Miss Sidney, she chirped. Bessie had a joyful voice that made you instantly like her. You just knew she was someone who was full of life and love and laughter. Then you won't be able to run away from me any more. Put me down, Bessie, please, he repeated with a twinkle in his eye. Spoil sport, she huffed. Over the man's shoulder she spied Eric peeping out of the cupboard. Do you know you've got a small boy hiding in your cupboard? Yes, I do, said Sid, scuttling over to the cupboard and opening the door. This is my great-nephew Eric. Come out of there, you. The boy pushed his way past the pots and pans and climbed out of the cupboard. Then he stood up and put out his hand to shake, assuming that's what grown-ups did. The lady had other ideas. Just as she'd done to Sid, she scooped the boy off his feet and hugged him tight. Despite this lady being a perfect stranger, it felt nice to be hugged by her. She was all warm and soft and squishy, perfectly made for cuddles. It was almost as nice as being hugged by his mum or dad. Almost, but not quite. Put the boy down, Bessie, chuckled Sid. I don't mind at all, exclaimed Eric. Bessie twirled the boy around the room, trying her best not to trip over the animals, and set him down on the floor. Bessie is my neighbour, began Sid, but no sooner as he began speaking than Bessie leapt in. I am Sydney's neighbour. I live in the house right next door. Unfortunately, the fence between our back gardens burned down in a bombing raid, so now I can come and go as I please. It wouldn't be more perfect. Sid pulled a face. He wasn't so sure. Oh, you are naughty, but I like you. Bessie comes over to, Sid began. I come over to feed the animals when Sydney's at work. A puzzled look crossed the lady's face and she checked her little watch. Talking of which, shouldn't you be at the zoo by now? Yes and no, replied Sid. Yes and no? There is a yes and no. It's yes or no, she teased. Yes, I should be there by now. But no, I shouldn't, because I've been fired. Fired? Repeated the lady theatrically. She nodded his head. Fired? He nodded his head once more. Fired? As in fired? There was silence for a minute. But Sydney, you've been working at the zoo forever. You've devoted your life to that place. I know you've given blood, sweat, toil and tears. Why in the name of goodness would they fire you? Sid looked to Eric for help. Well, it's a long story, began the boy.